So, hello. Thank you for joining us today for this incredible panel of O4U allies, friends, sponsors, and folks who are going to help us introduce all of you as students to a world that sometimes students don't clearly understand in terms of opportunities. So, that's part of the reason we want to do this today. We're going to do some quick introductions. I'm Cindy Love. I'm Executive Director of ALP for Undergrad.
I'm Paul Pendergast. I'm actually wearing two hats today. My first hat is as an entrepreneur, and I'm the CEO of Pendergast Consulting Group, which is a public affairs firm based here in San Francisco. But more importantly, I am also one of the founders and president of Build Out California, which has become the world's largest industry association for LGBT and allied firms in architecture, engineering, construction services, and large-scale real estate development.
My name is Jonathan Nasser. I'm a project manager at Clark Construction in our pre-construction department in San Francisco. So very excited to be here. And Paul, looking forward to getting involved with Build Out California with you and Nicolinas.
My name is Jamie States. I use they, them pronouns, and I work for Turner Construction as a quality control engineer in their pharmaceutical manufacturing branch. I've been working at Turner for 6 years, and I'm based out of Denver, Colorado.
I am Matt Gamble. I'm an architect with Jacobs Engineering. We are located globally, but we are also, my practice is actually in Southern California and generally California. I've been with Jacobs about 6 years.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So my first question is to ask each one of you if you could share a 60-second version of your personal career journey. And I know the 60 seconds isn't much time, but I'd like for the students to just get a quick thumbnail of how you landed where you are today in terms of careers.
I went to UCLA as an undergrad. I was kind of what we would call now a STEM student in high school. So I got a scholarship to UCLA in the engineering program. And after a couple of years, I decided I really wanted to be a little more on the artistic side of technicality. And so I finished up with a economics degree and then went to grad school for architecture, and then became hired in an architecture and interior design firm. And I gravitated towards the interior side because of the cadence and quickness of the projects that we delivered. And I've been doing that for the last 35 years.
When did you come to your current firm?
6 years ago.
6 years.
So I studied construction management at LSU. During that time, I had 3 internships with Clark Construction, 2 in Tampa, 1 in Washington, D.C. So I saw what I saw and I liked it. So I joined on for their DC branch. A month before I started, they sent me to Miami to work on the Miami Beach Convention Center. And then I relocated to DC, where I was doing pre-construction. And I've since relocated to San Francisco, where I will continue doing pre-construction. So I loved getting to see different aspects of the business and kind of finding my home within that.
How did you get your first internship?
You know, I got my first internship because my grandmother knew somebody who had worked at somewhere and, kind of interviewed, applied, and got my start there.
Just spent the last week with a bunch of students in the construction world at the AGC of California. So I actually fall into the bucket of I went to college and got my master's degree in something which totally has no relevance to construction. So my degrees are actually in music. And the reason why I came to San Francisco is because I actually sang with the San Francisco Opera for 4 years.
Oh, wow.
On stage, on live, and realized when I was 29 that I needed to get my business career going so that I didn't all of a sudden end up at 39 and wish that I had started 10 years earlier. So began the public affairs firm because basically after I was doing my round of calls, nobody would hire me because I didn't have any relevance. Well, so I started my own business. So an entrepreneur by trade. And if anybody had ever said you're going to end up in the construction world, I would have said you're crazy. But so I think it speaks to, really getting your grounding in college and, doing your master's or your undergraduate. It just prepares you for life. So I love my journey.
Yeah, I graduated from Colorado School of Mines with a civil engineering degree, and I started with Turner because I'd had an internship with them previously, and I was like, send me anywhere. You guys are a national company, and they were like Denver, Colorado. So I've been happily here ever since. Over the last 6 years, I've been a project engineer, superintendent, and now quality control engineer. And I jokingly tell people that I peaked really early in my career at the Meow Wolf Convergence Station here in Denver as an interactive art museum. So, but I love the job that I do now. Since then I've done work in healthcare, aviation, sports entertainment, and pharmaceuticals, of course. So, um, in addition to my operations job, I also run Turner's Denver Pride Network ERG, and I've been on the national ERG board for the last 4 years, so for most of my career as well.
Wow, phenomenal. How did you get your first internship?
Um, my first technical internship, I was a laborer for the business of mom and dad, basically, because they own their own construction, residential construction company. But with Turner, I actually got my first internship with them, and I got it by walking up to the recruiter and telling them everything I knew about Turner, which was more than the recruiter knew about Turner at the time. So that worked pretty well.
Was that like at a career fair?
Yep, at my
Yeah,
school.
yeah. We get asked this question a lot by students. How do I find a mentor? How do I find an internship? It's that first breakthrough moment, and it is rarely, we've already seen with just your group, it is rarely what we think it is. It comes through a lot of different ways. So thanks for sharing that. So a couple of things in this next question. What are the current trends and innovations that you're seeing in the construction industry? What is changing right now that people should be aware of?
If you think about how buildings have been built, all too often, it really hasn't changed in the last 100 years. And we are getting to an exciting time where things are changing. I can think of a project we're doing at San Diego State where all the kitchens, it's a student housing facility, about 1,000 bedrooms, and the bathrooms and kitchens are all prefabricated in the factory. So they come in, we crane them in, we put them inside the building, and that's it. Bathroom and kitchen are installed. There's also a lot of fascinating things going on in technology with building information modeling and virtual design and construction. One of our entities, Coda, has this technology where they're able to scan underground and find all the underground utilities, which can avoid really significant issues for the community and in cost if you accidentally strike a pipe underground. So the technology is really transforming a lot of the risks that we experience in construction and trying to make things safer and uh, more smooth.
I'll even actually piggyback off Jonathan. My thought is software and technology. I mean, even the last like 5 years of my career, BIM went to being a nice thing to have to absolutely necessary. And the amount of investment in engineers who are familiar with modeling and can do VDC and BIM, not only for design, but for managing schedules and quality and even safety has been huge. Yeah, I'm kind of just hoping that, we as an industry continue to invest in exploring how other industries, specifically like technology, can continue to support and let us grow in new interesting ways.
Yeah, I think for me, I started in the engineering related fields when GPS was just being introduced. And so I try and really tuck back into my brain what has happened since then to now. The technology that we used then for the first kind of geolocation mapping in our industry, you wouldn't do a job now without it. Back then it was like this extraordinary thing, like we were bringing in something from, Star Trek. But now it's the standard for the industry, which is just incredible. And it is very exciting because students, this is how they've grown up. They've
Mhm.
all had access to all this. They understand it. And so they have this kind of leverage, I think, entering into this industry that none of us necessarily would have had. Um, Even 6 years ago, I think things have shifted enough. Paul, how about you?
Well, let me just add on. At this week's big conference, the most popular breakout session was the integration of AI in construction, and it was
Okay.
just a huge, really amazing eye opener. What I see on the macro level is how projects are being delivered. We are now seeing alternative project delivery methods such as progressive design build, CMGC, design build, and a lot of that is being driven by the actual owners. And we do a lot of work within the public works sector. So money ebbs and flows from government agencies. So depending upon what the funding source is, you're seeing a lot of new delivery methods being utilized. So that's been kind of exciting. But the other thing, which I think is really relevant to our audience, is I've been doing this for 25 years in the construction industry, and I truly, over the last 3 to 4 years, have seen intentional emphasis put on by leadership down on inclusivity and diversity.
I love that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Matt?
So I would agree with all that's been said so far. And let me just add my 2 cents. I think born out of supply chain issues and the pandemic and all of us having to kind of reset the way we work, the traditional potential adversarial relationships between design industry, architects like myself and interiors designers, and construction, general contractors, has really eroded. That I find that we are needing to collaborate and doing it much more successfully because we're all focused on the same end goal, and we're challenged with these things out of left field constantly on our project delivery in terms of getting supplies and product to building sites. So I
Fewer
think,
silos.
yeah, I think so. And it's a good thing. It's a really good thing because at the end of the day, we're all working towards the same thing to get something built. And if when we come out of those silos and think creatively and we're better together in essence, I think the end result is much more successful for the community that the project's being built in, for the developer, for the owner, and for all the folks who contribute to the project. It's just more successful.
Yeah, and I love that you pointed out, the influence of COVID and a number of other aspects in
Mhm.
society. What I have seen, and truly in the last 5 years, is there's this permeability. Like we used to have silos and disciplines, and
Mhm.
everyone had to stay within their lane. And I
Yeah.
mean, it was just, pardon me. And I do think one of the gifts of um, communities who have not been highly represented in particular industries, but now are much more represented. I think one of the gifts is this permeability. It's like
Mhm.
once you begin to work with and embrace difference from yourself, um, you don't feel quite the same need to strap on all of your barriers. And once the
Mhm.
barriers come down, people work better together. It is a gift. So I love you
Yeah.
bringing that into this. Specifically, students, one thing they would like to know is what role, if any, do ERGs play in your particular workplaces? So employee resources groups, affinity groups specifically directed at diversity and inclusion.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to go first. So I had the benefit, really the opportunity of being involved early on in Clark's first employee resource group, which is LEAP for LGBTQ plus individuals, and watching Clark, a 5,000 person organization, learn how to leverage this passion and energy that its employees had, make sure that they were employee led in a way that was really productive. So over the last 2 years, with the help of consultants and executive leadership, we've really formulated the three things that we're looking to derive from these resource groups, and it's building community, expanding networks, and bring business value. we are a for-profit company, and one of the things that we need to do is make sure that the investment that we put into something we're getting out. It's happening in so many different ways. One is encouraging our members to go and get involved in external organizations and to increase their network, as well as kind of questioning the status quo. I think one of the beautiful things about inclusion and diversity is you have a lot of people come to the table, and there's no longer everyone looking at something with the same hat. Once you change the perspective, you're able to look at things with a different light and maybe come to a new solution that you didn't see previously.
Yeah, I like the challenging the status quo, and sometimes it's direct, like we need different benefits that we don't have, or these particular issues are happening that are not okay. And sometimes it's much less direct. It truly is about the unique perspective that people bring who have not been the majority in an organization. They can see things sort of, the Tao Te Ching says inside out, upside down. Sometimes we can just see things differently, which I love. Matt, how about ERGs?
So at Jacobs, we call them Jacobs Employee Networks, JENs. We have 8 of them, and it's I would say the last 5 years they've really grown. Jacobs has approximately 55,000 employees, and 37,000 of them belong to one of these Jacobs Employee Networks.
Wow, that's significant.
It is incredible. And so, and they, like I said, there's 8 of them. There's an LGBTQ, there's a women's network. It just, you can find an interest. And I think Jonathan mentioned the benefits are extraordinary. That you just increase your own personal network by in doing so. You meet other people with common interests, and it kind of breaks down, the idea of a big company to smaller pieces. It's supported from our CEO down to local and regional chapters. And so there are C-suite folks that chair all the different Jacobs networks. And from that, then the leadership flows down to the local level. And people do all kinds of things, fundraising, community outreach, have fun, do social networking. So I think they're a really big benefit to being an employee at a large company.
Have you, in this sort of recent challenge around legislative issues, specifically dealing with LGBTQ2 folks and trans folks, because you are so dispersed around the world, have you experienced or seen in any of your peer groups any sort of pullback from that effort of supporting the ERGs?
This is part of our culture now.
Good.
It's established.
It's embedded.
Yep.
I love hearing that, because I hear people sometimes say, "Oh, I think they're going to pull back," but I feel like, at least in the largest of companies, it really has become part of the culture, and because it involves so many employees in so many different types of groups,
yeah, exactly.
It's no longer perceived as just a gay thing.
Right.
Which is good. And of course, from a best practice standpoint, you'll find that anyone who does this type of work around building inclusion within the workplace, having that buy-in from the C-suite, and not just checking a box, but actually engaging, is one of the critical metrics of success of inclusion in a company. So good to hear. Jamie?
Yeah, I was thinking a little bit about what you said, where we've had all this legislation in recent years, anti-trans, anti-LGBTQ plus, and my observation is that, at least at Turner, it's never a pull back. It's more of a lean in whenever something difficult comes up in the public sphere. And like, one of the things I think about is, like, during the COVID-19 pandemic, we started a national ERG just focused on parents, because many of the demographics that were suffering most to get childcare and care for their kids were parents. And so, construction, in my experience, has never been viewed as the most agile industry,
Mhm.
right? Like
Mhm.
Jonathan said, we've been building things the same way for hundreds of years. And it was really cool to see us being able to, in live time, identify problems and say, even if we can't solve them on a national or a global scale, we can provide resources, we can support our employees in live time and help make it just a little bit better. And I think that's what ERGs are for. And we did it again. In 2023, we started a new ERG focused on abilities, specifically like neurodivergence, kind of
Mhm.
recognizing, a world where being neurodivergent and, how unintentionally we can create really hostile environments to people who are really struggling. And, that was another cool thing to see that I didn't think I'd see in this year, let alone in the next 10 years.
I love that. That's perfect. Paul, you have anything to add to this?
Oh, I wish I had 2 hours on this topic alone. I've actually, Build Out has been honored to actually work with all the companies represented here today. And I can say unequivocally that each of the companies really puts great energy and focus on their ERG groups. But for our audience, I think what's so important about ERG groups is, let's talk about, internships or your pathway
Yes.
to professional success, because we all need mentors. And there's no better place to find a mentor than an ERG group.
Right.
And those are both, from the LGBTQ community plus the allied community. So there's really that wonderful blend. And I want to give a shout out right now to Jacobs, because each year we have a big event called the Founders Day, and this year we had it in Los Angeles. And the corporate sponsors of the Jacobs ERG group actually timed their international LGBTQ ERG group for the same time period. So we actually had the benefit of meeting the UK folks and the Australian folks and from across the whole country. So that has actually, along with AECOM and WSP, we are actually building our global network because of these ERG groups throughout the international AEC community. So I'm telling you, you could not invest your time better as a student at any level than getting plugged in with an ERG group. Wouldn't you guys agree?
Oh yeah.
Love that.
It's something that you said, Paul, that really resonated with me. I think one of the best powers behind the employee resource group is you are able to leverage a 5,000, 10,000, 40, 50,000 person organization and provide a voice for a minority, right? So all of a sudden, when I think about when Clark marched in the DC Pride Parade for the first time and for the second time, and we had a second and a third float, right? One of our competitors that wasn't there before was there the next year.
Yeah.
And it's a small group of people, but it's making a wave of change as a big player in the industry. So it's really exciting to see how quickly these small groups and organization can push a whole industry.
Mm.
Yeah. And Cindy, can I just add, I've always felt that, our LGBTQ community is 30 years behind the 8 ball within the AEC community. And it is our ERGs and our LGBTQ business owners that are helping us make up that lost time.
Yeah.
And I'm such an advocate for ERGs. So thank you for bringing up that question.
And just sort of look at now the student who's arriving, and maybe they're coming for their first internship or they're coming for their first job. We've already referenced that it's really changed quite a bit in the last 5 to 6 years around technology. But I'd like to go to sort of the classic question of what are the essential skills and qualifications that companies are looking for now when students come in, if they're interested in construction management, design, engineering. What are the basics that companies are looking for today? Are they the same? What has shifted?
I always encourage people to, even if it's, not my company, to always find a company that is encouraging continuous learning. Because like I think about, my boss on this current project, he's going to be 70 next year. And he has 3 master's certificates in plumbing and mechanical and HVAC piping. And he is one of the smartest people I've ever met in this industry. And it's probably like at least once a week that he tells me he learns something new every day. And that's, I think as soon as you realize that, in an industry like this where we've been building things for as long as we have, you're always going to be learning something new. And just kind of being humble and accepting the fact that you're going to walk into a room with like the average amount of career experience is going to be in the decades. Just learn as much as you can, especially when you first start, just say, I don't know. And, but I'd love to find out. I think that's kind of the biggest opportunity for students to just accept the fact that when they graduate, they're not going to know everything they need to know to do their first job, and that's okay.
I think that is an excellent start, Jamie. I want to just use a word that I always encourage people to think about a lot, is always be curious. Curiosity keeps us agile. It keeps us from getting stale. And it allows us to learn all about the emerging technologies and the way that our industry is changing. And it is changing really fast. Up until 10 years ago, probably 10 years ago, maybe it was the advent of CAD. I don't know. But we designed very, as we built the same way for many, many, many years. And all of a sudden things started to change. And I noticed that folks that I worked next to, colleagues of mine, when CAD came into being, that didn't want to learn it, didn't really have much to offer after that, except unless they wanted to take a non-design oriented position with the company. So they limited their ability to grow with the company by not being curious. So I would just say, stay curious. That would be my advice.
Yeah, I mean, ironically, right? I think about, whenever I'm managing a summer associate or whenever I'm managing someone brand new to the industry, the first thing I say is, my expectation of you is to know absolutely nothing. That's where I expect that. And obviously they will have knowledge, but what I want to see is a positive attitude. I want to see questions and I want to see genuine interest, right? So if you're coming to work and you're excited to be there and you're excited about the things that we're working on, you're fascinated by the problems that we have to overcome, and you don't need to have all the answers, but you need to be excited to solve the problem. Those are the kind of characteristics that we really love to see.
If you go to any industry event, you will see the people who are there, who are in the booths and the expos, are technology firms, and they are gaining their presence very rapidly. And technology is so taking over the construction industry, the CM industry. If you're going to be in cost controls or, even in safety these days, everything is being driven by, software programs like Hammer Tech for safety. And we all know in the industry that we have a current and ongoing workforce shortage.
Right.
And there's going to be a whole group of people who are going to be exiting. And the great thing from a student perspective, whether you're in college, university, or community college, is your services and expertise are going to be needed more than ever. And because young people are early adopters of software, I'm telling you, it is a fantastic position to be in when you are really, ubiquitous with your skills and technology.
So you're saying it's a great time to enter the industry.
Oh, it's perfect.
But my advice is, whenever you do anything, you only get out of it what you put in, right? And the world is full of opportunities beyond what you do in your job and beyond the opportunities that you have on top of your job, like getting involved in an employee resource group or getting involved in a mentorship program or creating a training. All of these opportunities, when you join, get involved, put into it, because that will create these opportunities. And I think a great example would be the Out for Undergrad conference. When you're in this conference, take full advantage of the resources that you have. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. Don't be afraid to be open, and don't be afraid to learn from others' experiences. You can only get out of something what you put into it. So don't be afraid to put in.